Welcome to Not This, Not That, where we push our boundaries of understanding and perception. I am your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello, and I invite you to join me as we open to the possibility that things may not be exactly as you believe, as you've been told, that there could be more, that in our collective consciousness is the potential for the all. You can find Not This, Not That on sacredstoriesmedia.com and on Apple Podcasts and all streaming services on the Sacred Stories podcast. Today we will be exploring our boundaries of perception on what my guest calls our sick care system and whether our current world events are part of an ancient prophecy foretold by indigenous teachers. We have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Bonnie McLean, an award-winning doctor and author of the book Integrative Medicine, Return of the Soul to Healthcare. So welcome, Dr. McLean, to Not This, Not That.
Oh, thank you so much, Reverend Patricia. It's so nice to talk with you, and thank you so much for bringing me on and letting me talk a little bit about my favorite subject, integrative medicine.
Absolutely. No, I think it's critical, in today's world, not for a pun on words, but it's critical to our self-care, to our health, and what you're calling our sick care system, which I have to say I'm in agreement with you. But before we start with that, share with our audience, what is integrative medicine?
Well, I'll tell you what it is to me. You might get a different definition from somebody else. But to me, it is using the best of both worlds of allopathic medicine and of our natural medicine, and also in a holistic framework. And holistic means body, mind, emotions, and spirit. That's all of who we are. And of course, the allopathic medicine is what we have been brought up to think of as just medicine, right? If we talk about medicine, that's what we think about. We think about the hospitals or going into our doctor and telling him our symptoms, and then the doctor deciding whether to give us a medication, maybe has to do some kind of a diagnostic procedure, maybe even some kind of surgery, but it's usually after we're having the symptoms. We don't just ordinarily go in there. We may have our, yearly wellness check, but even that anymore, to me, is like they don't even get to touch us much anymore. They're so busy having to look in their computer and talk to the computer to make sure that they record everything, keep all their records, because everything is run now by the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical industry. Really, our sick care system, I think, is run by that. To me, the allopathic medicine is important because it's important for our acute situations. If we're, need some kind of medication or some kind of intervention, yes, or life-threatening situations or an accident, if we need a surgery or, some kind of procedure, any kind of emergency and, conditions that require, something very active, like I said, the diagnostic testing or the MRIs. And so it's excellent with those kinds of things. It does miracles, like I've had cataract surgery, and to me that was a miracle, even though it's commonplace to all of us now, just to walk in not seeing clearly and to walk out of that office seeing clearly is just amazing to me. So it's including that, but also we need to work on the prevention part, which is where the natural medicine comes in. The natural medicine comes in where we are empowered as the patient, where we take care of ourselves, where we prevent getting ill. We don't wait until we're getting the symptoms. We take care of our health with the way we eat, with being able to exercise, getting enough sleep, having a sense of purpose in our lives, having good relationships, being part of a community, all those, being able to spend time in nature, all those things are part of our health. And I think in our profit motive, culture that we seem to have become, it's easy to lose track of those parts of our lives. And I'm as guilty as anybody else. I found during this time of not being able to work and spending more time at home and giving myself better self-care, how much I had neglected my own health. And I tell you what, I'm not going back to the lifestyle I had. I was so busy, without even realizing it, just not spending as much time in my yard and my garden, like I said, with my own health, doing my yoga and my qigong and my walking and being out in nature and connecting with people in a different way. Just because we haven't been able to be personally with somebody else, we have still been able to maybe communicate in different ways, like you and I are on Zoom or on the phone. Or my sister and I have gone back to even writing handwritten letters that we mail to each other.
Hmm.
So yeah,
integrative medicine, right? So just to frame it, integrative medicine is really the combination, or using both allopathic, or what people would consider more traditional Western medicine, and the holistic, more natural modalities. You had mentioned, even, well, yoga is a practice, but I know that you also do acupressure. Name some of the other more holistic or natural medical practices that you talk about in your book, Integrative Medicine, Return of the Soul to Healthcare.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I do acupressure, hypnosis. I use essential oils. I use flower essences. I use homeopathy. I use Chinese and Western herbs. I work with diet with people and with their lifestyles. And I work in an office with 2 chiropractors and 2 massage therapists. So we have what I would consider an integrative medical office. Even though we do not have an MD in our office, we have a wonderful referral system and very good relationships with other practitioners in the area. So we will refer to MDs as needed, and they refer back to us, which is very, we've changed a lot in my part of Florida. 20 years ago, it wasn't quite as common for practitioners like myself to be referring back and forth with MDs, but we are being recognized as valuable practitioners more and more. We also have, like the yoga instructors, the Tai Chi instructors, meditation teachers, anything that works with the body, mind, and the spirit in a natural way. Because with the natural medicine, we believe that the body heals itself. It's its own self-healer. And if it's in balance, it can really work with itself and heal itself. So people like myself know that. We don't think we're fixing anything or anybody. And we keep reminding our patients that they're the magic. They're the, and when they do respond, then remind them that it was because of them, that they did that. So all we do is help catalyze that process to happen and to support it, to help educate our patients so that they can participate and so they can be self-empowered with their own healing and their own health. Also included in natural healing would be some of the energy work that some people do, like Reiki. I also practice Reiki, and I practice pranic healing. And so the hands-on or the hands-off, energy healing also would be included.
So integrative medicine is utilizing pretty much whatever is appropriate for our together, right? So for example, you mentioned if somebody needs a surgery. My mother, who's 82, broke her hip. She needed hip surgery, right? Yes. So she wouldn't necessarily go have acupuncture
exactly
to repair her broken hip. However, her healing from the surgery, right, the wellness of her body, even the anxiety she's had around the surgery, the other modalities can be utilized instead of just pharmaceutical drugs, for example, and just physical therapy as one example of things working together in an accident or in somewhere where we need surgery. And then you made the example of, living life a little bit differently, right? Bringing in some of the practices, the yoga, the qigong and other practices for wellness. So we stay well, more well than without that, right? A more holistic look at our body, mind, and spirit. So integrative, right? So integrative medicine, I really do think is, you call it the return of the soul to healthcare, and I do believe, and hopefully it is really the direction it seems that we are working towards. Hopefully as a human consciousness, right? To be a lot more holistic in our approach. So let's just talk, Bonnie, about, you mentioned the sick care system and you gave some examples of that. And I think that anyone listening, I'm sure has had quite a bit of frustration or questions around the current health system that many of us, work within. But you said that there's ancient prophecies that have been foretold by indigenous teachers. And I know that you've studied with many indigenous teachers in your training as an integrative physician. Can you talk about that? What is one of the prophecies and how does it speak to our current sick care system?
It's their prophecies actually that keep me going when I get discouraged. And especially, during this last 6 weeks that have been so full of uncertainty. And that, I've gone back remembering I spent probably 20 years traveling and studying with indigenous teachers. And I've done that here in this country with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies and with Sandra Ingerman, with John Perkins, with Dream Change Coalition. I've traveled to South America and Central America. I've worked with the Ecuadorians up in the Andes and in the jungles, down in Chile and Mexico and Costa Rica and Brazil. And I've also lived in Australia where I had an Aboriginal teacher. I spent about 2 months in Bali and saw many healers there. And I've also studied some with some Native American teachers here in this country. One thing that I found with all of them, and 20 years ago, it didn't ring as true to me as it does right now, this day and time. They said that we are moving from what they called an age of darkness into an age of light. And and if you talk to an astrologer too, they can see, how the sun goes around, its own cycle, and there are different times that the earth will go through, different levels of consciousness or less consciousness. So we've been in a time of relative unconsciousness, and we're moving into this age of light, which is an age of enhanced consciousness, where we're waking up to ourselves as our essence, as our soul, as, with our sense of purpose of who we came into this life to be, what we came to do, because each and every one of us has a sense of purpose that we came to do. And if we are fulfilling that purpose, we feel like we're in the flow. If we're not in the flow, then it's a matter of, just addressing that and saying, okay, what does give me joy? What does, give me this vibrancy, and this happiness? Find what that is and then live it, no matter what it might take. So they're like, in Ecuador, they were talking, and in Peru, they talk about it too. They talk about the marriage of the eagle and the condor. This is the way they express this change. To them, the northern hemisphere is the land of the eagle. The eagle's an aggressive bird. It's a bird of vision, sharp vision. It's a very intelligent bird. And it is aggressive. It's a hunter. And it's relatively competitive. And the South American power bird is the condor. And the condor is a gentle bird. It's a very large bird as well. It has its own power, but it's in the power of gentleness. It's an environmentalist. You know, it cleans up the environment. They've been very interested in learning from the land of the eagle, which is us, and also teaching us about their land of the condor, which is the land of the heart. So it's blending, it's the marriage of the mind with the heart, and bringing the two together. So for them, the marriage of the eagle and the condor is the marriage of the mind and of the heart. And it's not either or, it's both and. And again, you know, like with integrative medicine, it's not either or, it's both and, but knowing when to use what, which is the most appropriate.
So what would some of your suggestions be for us to get there, though? Because that sounds wonderful. And I feel like part of my maybe impatience, you know, with the current world situation is I just want us to be there, right? So how do you, as an integrative physician, help us move into that blending? What would you suggest?
I feel like my purpose on this earth is to help my fellow humans to heal on the level that they are ready to, and to shine as much light as I can in this world. And if I'm doing those things, I feel like I am fulfilling my own little dot of light. You know, that all of us, with all these little dots of light, we can create a lot of light. I'm 75, and I have kind of accepted that it is possible. I may actually not live to see everything I would like to see with the coming new age. Maybe I will. I mean, I'm probably going to live a pretty long life, and maybe I will, but I'm not attached to that anymore. I was also taught that a lot of our hope is in these young people, that there would be some very evolved souls being born during this time that would come onto the earth with the same level of consciousness that somebody like myself has spent a whole lifetime trying to develop, you know, and to cultivate, that they will come in that way. And so they will be able to take, if people like me and, you know, those of us that I call the bridge generation can hold the light for these younger people, that they will take that and be able to transform the world in the way that we can see it, that we can see it unfolding. One of my teachers, Alberto Villoldo, says that, he says, it's not a matter of being passive about knowing that this new world is unfolding and will continue to unfold. We have to birth it. We have to birth it by participating in that unfolding. And that's in the way that we live, the way we think, the way we treat other people, and with whatever vision we are holding for the future. And we can actively hold that vision. We can visualize how we want this world to be, you know, with living in peace and loving the earth and taking care of our environment, honoring all the parts of Mother Earth, including all the animals and the plant kingdom. And, you know, we're all here together. This is our Garden of Eden. He says that he says that we've never really left the Garden of Eden, but if some of us chose to be kicked out, those of us that chose not to honor our earth are not living there, you know, in a way that we can experience. But we can always choose to do that.
It's fascinating to me. I just want to say that, you know, you call yourself one of the bridge generation. My previous interview before you was with another 75-year-old woman named Beth Green, who's out there rocking it as Granny rocks and playing piano, and her intuitive wisdom and guidance that she shares is, decades, right? Decades that she has been living this. And so I think and in the highest regard, think of you as one of the elders. You know what I'm saying? That is,
I like that.
That that you and Beth, two 75-year-old women, but you're holding the light, you're showing the way, you're still active, you're still and Beth has been almost fully disabled almost her entire life, and she is started to replay the piano at 73 years old following Spirit's guidance. But I think that is so important, Bonnie, that there are, even with the younger people, honestly, personally, I think that, yes, of course, younger people with older souls are being born, and they will do some amazing things. But I don't think we just turn it over and say, oh, those young people coming are going to fix everything. Leave it to the youth. You know how many times I see things and people are like, well, the youth will take care of it. And to a great degree, yes, they're going to contribute greatly, but they also need the elders, to hold the light and to hold the space and create a framework, create that path for them.
Yes, I totally agree. And I tell you, I get along very well with young people. I love young people. And in my office, the three young women that run the front office are all young. And one of them was what I guess my generation would call a millennial. She came in very strong-willed, and she and I butted heads in the beginning. And it was like two pieces of sandpaper rubbing against each other. As we kept doing that, we both got smoother, and the sandpaper started smoothing out. And she sees me as like her second grandmother now, and I see her, as kind of like a goddaughter. I call myself the fairy grandmother. And so it's, being able to experience that. And a lot of my patients actually are very young, and I just love young people. So, and they seem to really like me a lot. So yes, I agree with you. It really is a matter of us learning more about each other and realizing that we're really not as different as we might be conditioned to think that we are.
So in today's world, we're dealing with so many things. I mean, in addition to the sick care system that was here, has been here for a long time, it's hard to avoid that we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, and also a pandemic of fear that is giving rise to arguments and even violence in our world, where people don't agree on how to move forward, right? So integrative medicine, placing it within the current pandemic, what would you say, what would you hope people can do in order to further the prophecy, right, of the blending, of moving into more of the light from the darkness? What would you, if you could give just maybe two tips that you think are very important that everyone could employ, what would you say to people to help them?
Well, I would say, like this pandemic supposedly has like 5 stages. There's one where you're asymptomatic, you might have it, but you don't know, or you might not, but you want to stay strong. You might have mild symptoms, which would be the second stage. The third stage would be moderate symptoms. The fourth one would be severe symptoms, where you end up in the hospital. And the fifth one would be recovery. And so we can practice holistic medicine with all of those, working with the body, mind, and spirit. So we can work in with the body, which is the ways we were talking about. And I have a lot of suggestions on my webpage, which is spiritgatemedicine.com. And I have a blog that's only, that's particular for the pandemic, where I talk about all the supplements and, things that we can do to keep our immune system strong, because that's really what we have to do. That way we can either prevent it, or if we get it, we can keep it in a mild form, and we don't have to let it get worse. And holistic is body, mind, emotions, and spirit. So you mentioned the fear. I would put that also in the level of the mind, emotions, and spirit. The more we can keep our consciousness on love, as Marianne Williams says, love and fear cannot coexist. So if we can keep reminding ourselves to stay in a place of gratitude and compassion and unconditional love for ourselves and other people, that will help us stay out of that fear. And if someone is reacting with fear, we can still treat them the way we would want to be treated, with the same kind of compassion, for knowing that they are in fear, that aggression that they're showing is coming from that place of fear. And maybe not reacting so strongly to that and jumping down, into the same kind of mentality, but being able to hold the light for them as well.
Dr. McLean, thank you so much for sharing all of this great information with everyone today. I do agree that integrative medicine and the mind, body, spirit, working, holistic approach is the way through, this current pandemic and into the higher consciousness of light that we started the interview speaking about. If you can please remind our audience of the name of your book, your website, and how they can receive more information.
Thank you. The name of my book is Integrative Medicine, The Return of the Soul to Healthcare by Bonnie McLean. And it can be found on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And my webpage is www.spiritgatemedicine.com. That's SPIRITGATE medicine.com. And if you're interested in some of the protocols for the pandemic, then go on my blog site, and I have a special blog for that. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. No, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I believe it's a foundational conversation that hopefully many will listen to, and that they will certainly heed, because having the greater holistic support, the mind body support, I believe is critical, moving us through this pandemic and moving us into the higher consciousness that the indigenous teachers have told us, have prophesied.
Yes, I think so. Thank you so much for having me, Patricia.
Absolutely. So, listeners, you've been listening to Dr. Bonnie McLean. Her book is, as she said, Integrative Medicine, The Return of the Soul to Healthcare. And I am your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello, and you have been listening to Not This, Not That.